All right, let's dive into a huge question, one that I think a lot of us have wrestled with. How do we go from just talking at God to actually having a conversation with Him? In this explainer, we're going to pull together some incredible wisdom from a few different Christian teachers to build a really practical guide, something that can help turn that monologue into a real dialogue. So, does prayer ever feel like you're just leaving a voicemail? You say everything you need to say, you hang up, and you're just not sure if anyone's going to get back to you. It's such a common feeling, right? This sense that we're sending messages out into the universe, just hoping for a response. Well, the good news is, it doesn't have to be that way. So, first things first, why does it so often feel like God is silent? Let's dig into the common roadblocks, the things that can make it so hard to hear anything at all.
What's so powerful about this is how it really frames the whole challenge. Father Spiridon talks about how our lives are just filled with the noise of the world. Think about it. The 24/7 news cycle, social media, our own worries, our fears, it's a constant buzz, and that makes us totally deaf to God. It's like the story of Elijah, right? God wasn't in the crazy wind or the earthquake. He was in the still, small voice. It's a gentle whisper that you can only ever hear when you intentionally tune out all that other static.
Pastor Vlad really breaks down some of the specific walls we put up. For some, it's just bad teaching, this idea that God kind of went silent after the Bible was written. For others, it's disappointment. You tried listening before, and you got nothing, and you just gave up. A big one is fear. We're terrified of getting it wrong. And then there's this feeling of unworthiness, that hearing from God is only for premium Christians. And he also points out that sin can act like a spiritual ear infection, which is a powerful image, right? It literally blocks our ability to hear clearly. But the big takeaway here is that these are all super common, human things, and we can absolutely work past them.
Okay, so if those are the roadblocks, how do we start clearing the path? Here's the thing, hearing from God isn't usually a passive thing, like waiting around for a lightning bolt to strike. It's actually an active process. It takes preparation. We have to create the right conditions to be able to listen. So how do we do that? Well, it really boils down to 3 keys. First, you have to quiet the noise, and I mean intentionally find actual real silence. Second, as Father Spiridon really emphasizes, you've got to study the scriptures. The Bible is our baseline, it's the reference point. It's how we learn to recognize God's voice in other places. And third, we have to live in anticipation. We have to approach God expecting Him to speak, not just assuming it's going to be a one-way street again. And this example just makes it all click, doesn't it? Father Spiridon points to the first disciples. When Jesus walked up and just said, "Follow me," they dropped everything. Why? How? Because they were already seeking. They had been studying the prophecies. They were praying. They were living in anticipation of the Messiah. Philip was ready. So when the call finally came, he knew that voice instantly. Preparation is what turns a random moment into a divine appointment. Okay, so we've worked on clearing out the static. We're trying to prepare our hearts, but what are we actually listening for? I mean, how does God even talk to us today in the 21st century? Let's break down the different ways. David Dicker Hernandez offers this fantastic 4-level framework. I want you to think of it like a pyramid. At the very bottom, the huge, sturdy base, the most reliable and foundational level is the Word, the Bible. Build on top of that is wisdom, that kind of inner compass for daily life. Then you have the whisper, which is more of a specific, personal instruction for a certain moment. And way up at the tiny tip of the pyramid for special occasions, you have wonders, things like dreams, signs, and miracles. The most important thing to get here is this: you always start at the bottom. So let's just focus on that foundation for a second, the Word. Dr. Charles Stanley gives this incredibly simple but game-changing advice. He says, don't just read the Bible like it's some ancient history book about other people. Read it personally. As you're reading a story or a psalm, just pause and ask, God, what are you saying to me in this? That one little question can transform your reading from a history lesson into a real, living conversation. Okay, so now let's jump up to that 3rd level, the whisper. This is something you're not going to find written word for word in the Bible, but and this is key. It will never, ever contradict the Bible. David Hernandez shares a perfect example. He was talking with his wife, and after they were done, he just felt this disruption in his spirit. And the Holy Spirit whispered to him, "You hurt her feelings." That wasn't a Bible verse, but it was a specific, personal course correction that was perfectly aligned with the Bible's principles of love and kindness. See how that works?
So what about those wonders at the very top of the pyramid? Well, Dr. Stanley uses the story of Moses to show how sometimes God has to do something really dramatic to get through to us. I mean, Moses had spent 40 years in the quiet of the desert being humbled. So when it was time, God didn't send him a subtle feeling. Nope. He used a burning bush, something undeniable, unexplainable, to grab his full and undivided attention, and then he gave him an inescapable, life-altering command.
So, you've quieted your heart, you're in the Word, and you feel a prompting, a nudge, a whisper, maybe something bigger. This brings us to what is maybe the most important question in this entire conversation. How do you know if it's actually God?
And I'm being serious. How can you be sure that an idea came from the Holy Spirit and not just you, your own ambition, your own fears, or as Rick Warren hilariously puts it, the bad burrito you ate last night? Self-deception is a very real danger, so we absolutely need a reliable filter.
Thankfully, Pastor Rick Warren provides an excellent set of filters. Think of this as a checklist. First, and this is the big one, does it line up with the Bible? God is not going to tell you to do something that contradicts what He's already said, period. Second, does it make you more like Jesus? Is it loving? Is it peaceful? Third, do other wise, mature believers in your life confirm it? Fourth, and this is a big one, does it concern your stuff? God's job is to talk to you about you, not give you ammo to control other people. And finally, does it bring God's peace? Not anxiety, not pressure, not confusion, peace.
Now this slide right here, this might be a complete game changer for you. Rick Warren draws this incredibly sharp line between conviction and condemnation. Conviction from God is always specific. It says, you were unkind in that conversation. Condemnation, on the other hand, is vague. It's just a general heavy feeling. You're a terrible person. Conviction is corrective. It's designed to build you up. Condemnation is accusatory. It just wants to tear you down. Genuinely understanding this one difference is one of the most powerful tools you can have for figuring out where a thought is coming from.
So, there we have it. We've looked at the barriers that keep us from hearing God. We've talked about how to prepare our hearts, the different ways He speaks, and how to test what we hear. We've really moved from theory to having a practical toolkit. So the question I want to leave you with is this. The conversation is waiting to happen. Now that you have a framework for how to listen, what will you be listening for?